Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of She Says with Serena. I am still your lovely host, Serena. And this morning we're going to be talking about depression. First, let's talk about the difference of um, feeling depressed and actually suffering from depression. We all go through flighting feelings of feeling depressed. We all have days where we just have a case of the blahs. It's nasty outside. We don't feel like getting out of the bed. We just want to stay snuggled up under our warm blanket and not deal with the world today. That is the feeling of being depressed. Suffering from depression is having that same feeling day after day after day after day for more than 2 weeks. Um, there are different kinds of depression. There's persistent depression. There's postpartum depression that happens after you have a child. There's psychotic depression. There's seasonal depression that should be happening to many, many people right about now since the clocks just went back. And there's bipolar depression, which is a separate diagnosis in and of itself. But I include the bipolar depression in this because it is a form of depression. I myself have suffered from postpartum depression, seasonal depression, and bipolar depression. Now, with seasonal depression, I just got through, I am currently still cycling out of a manic episode with my bipolar disorder. And so what goes up must come down, right? So I like to refresh my mind when I know that I am entering into or leaving out of an episode. If I can pinpoint which of my mental health disorders is triggering the episode, I like to refresh my mind. And when the seasons change, especially going from summer into fall and fall into winter, it's really, really, really wise of us to stay in our game and remind ourselves what the symptoms of our depression are. So, what are the symptoms? We have persistent, sad, or empty feelings. We feel hopelessness and pessimism. That means to look on the downside of things instead of looking on the upside of things. We feel a great deal of irritability sometimes, guilt, worthlessness. We have a loss of interest in our hobbies and things that we enjoy doing. We have decreased energy, that feeling of fatigue, of not wanting to get out of the bed or off the couch or out from under that blanket. We tend to talk or move more slowly than we normally would. Or we could have feelings of restlessness. We have difficulty concentrating and remembering. Isn't that the truth? We have difficulty sleeping. We have appetite or weight changes, thoughts of death or suicide, and aches or pains that don't get better when you take medication to help with those aches or pains. If you're having, like constant persistent pain and you go take a couple of Tylenol and that pain doesn't ease up, that pain could be a result of your depression that you're feeling. So, what are the risk factors for depression? Generally speaking, if you have a history of depression, once you have been diagnosed with the disorder, the chances of that disorder continuously over time repeating itself are pretty good. So once you've dealt with depression at, like, let's say 16, the chances that you're going to be dealing with that depression on and off for the rest of your life are pretty good. If you go through life changes, trauma, stress, that really triggers for me. That triggers a lot of episode stress. Stress is a huge factor for me. Stress and lack of sleep. And on the symptoms, I'll tell you something that wasn't on there that should have been on there was lack of grooming. When people get depressed, we find it difficult to get ourselves in the shower and wash our butts. Like, what's our problem? It's something that a lot of people who have mental illness struggle with, though. And then there's physical, that of the risk factors, there's also physical illness and medications. There may be medications that you're taking for something that's completely unrelated, like medications for blood pressure, that can trigger depression. Really make sure that you're reading the side effects of all of your medication, because you can be taking medication for something that has absolutely nothing to do with mental illness and find yourself suddenly having all of these feelings that you're not accustomed to having. And you're like, what the heck is this? It could be your medication. So please, please, please make sure that anytime you take a new medication, that long pamphlet they give you with everything under the sun, actually read that. You don't have to read it every time if you're getting the same medication over and over, but anytime you're taking something new, read what the side effects to those medications are and really pay attention to yourself and your body for the first few weeks that you're on that new medicine. So what do you do if you find that you're in a state of depression, that you've been, more than 2 weeks? When I'm talking about depression, I'm talking about you had these feelings for 2 weeks or more. These are extended feelings that it's not, I'm depressed. Even if you're depressed, you can try these things. I'm really talking about people who suffer from depression. There's such a huge difference. So what you can do is you can try to be active. Set some goals for yourself. Let them be small at first. I take graph paper, and I have a piece right here. I take graph paper. I'm obsessed with writing on graph paper for some reason. And I make lists for myself and break them down. So instead of it saying, clean the kitchen, it'll say wash the dishes, wipe the counters, sweep the floors. And every little thing I do, I check it off, because every little thing that we do, sometimes it's an accomplishment. We need to keep our goals small and realistic. And then as you come out of the depression, you can set bigger and bigger goals for yourself. You want to try to spend time with people who you trust and people who you love, who help build you up. People who are okay with just being with you and letting you be sometimes too. It's okay to postpone important decisions if you had something coming up and you're in the middle of like the worst depression of your life. Nobody wants to get married in their wedding gown when they're feeling like they would rather be dead, right? So if you're going through depression, if you're suffering with depression, and it just happens to be that you have this vacation planned, or you have a wedding planned, or you're going someplace with your family, it is completely fine for you to say, you know what, guys, we're going to have to hold off on that and maybe try for that in a month or two when I'm feeling a little bit better. But right now, it's not the time for me to do that. And it's completely okay to do that. Don't isolate yourself. That's like the worst thing you can do when you're depressed. Do not isolate yourself. I want you guys to read. I was so happy with this website that I got this information from, because at the end it said, read, educate yourself. And I was like, yes, 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 yes. This is what I push for everyone to do all the time. Read about your illness, and not just about the one that you were diagnosed with. Read about anything that you're curious about. Read about anything that you think that it could be. Maybe you were misdiagnosed. A lot of people believe they're misdiagnosed. It's your responsibility to read about your own illnesses. It's your responsibility to reflect, to think back, to say to yourself, have I ever seen this? Have I ever seen these symptoms in myself? It's your responsibility to recognize and say, oh, wait a minute. That time when I stayed in bed all month long, yeah, that could have been it. That could have been it. I didn't even shower for 3 weeks. That could have been depression. You have to recognize your own symptoms. And once you recognize your own symptoms, then you're able to regulate your life a little bit better around your triggers, around your symptoms, and you'll start to figure things out and how to work within your mental illness so that it doesn't overtake your life. Okay? I think that this has been a great chat this morning. I thank you guys for joining me. Stay safe out there today. It's going to be a wacky, wacky Wednesday. Don't forget, guys, that you are worthy, okay? You are worthy of feeling great today. God bless, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm going to say that every day because my husband reminds me to. Peace out, y'all. Bye.